tell somebody and just break it down like you've been doing. I would love to be able to do that. So I'm going to take Brother Dixon's personal evangelism class in December, and I think he's going to do personal evangelism the first hour and do, I think it's James the second hour. Yeah.
Well, I hope you'll come back and
Oh,
you know, Philippians and Ephesians.
I will.
I can't promise you I'll finish either one of them. I make a promise that you'll enjoy the study. If I can enjoy it, you know, then I think I can help you.
Yeah, that is so true.
And I enjoyed the study, I enjoyed the teaching, but I enjoyed. So you asked a question a few weeks ago about Matthew chapter 12. And I'm just going to work on that. And I have 3 videos that I'm going to show you, but I don't know that I'll get to it.
Okay.
We'll do that second hour. And if we don't get to all 3 of them, then we just don't get to all 3 of them.
Okay.
We're studying in the life of Christ, and I want to look at that passage that comes from Isaiah concerning the prophecy of Jesus and the kind of person he would be. And you asked a question about Matthew 12, verse 20, a bruised reed he will not break, and a smoking flax he will not quench. I want to talk about that and its application. What Isaiah is saying is that when Jesus comes, or when Messiah comes, Isaiah is speaking about Messiah, doesn't call him Jesus, but when he comes, this is the kind of character. When you look at in verse 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, he gives us different attributes of the character of Jesus, and one of those attributes is that a bruised reed he will not break, a smoking flax he will not quench. A reed is like the cattail we talked about out there in the riverbed, and the Jews or people who lived in that culture would oftentimes take those kinds of things and make tools out of it, like a pen, a writing pen, or a hair or a tool. Nobody ever called me. I promise you, nobody ever calls me, but every time in this class, somebody calls me. I carry this thing around just to look good, but I never use it. I'm sorry. I hate it when that happens to me in class. When the teacher is teaching and she takes a phone call, I'm not going to take it unless I can see it's an emergency.
Right.
That's not. I usually don't even say I'm going to get turned off. But I would call that. Anyway, Bruised Reeds. I usually illustrate this with my grandmother's flowers. We had a flower bed out front, and we'd get out and play in the army or whatever, and we'd carve them in the flower bed and break the flowers. And somehow switch and runs out of the flowers, and then she's got these flowers. What are you going to do with these flowers? They're all broken and bent over. And they put them in the vase were there too, but after we're done, you throw them away, because they're not pretty. She had tiger lilies. They all stand up real nice and tall, and they weren't standing up nice and tall when we got done playing, and when she was going to stop it, bruised flowers or bent over flowers that nobody has. You don't want to get a girlfriend or wife or whatever like that. She doesn't want that. Well, the idea that he's saying here is when Jesus comes upon that bruised reed, instead of cutting it out and throwing it away, he's going to make it back to where it's supposed to be. Same thing with the smoking flax. What is a smoking flax? Who's the idea of a flax? We don't have a lot of names for flax. We have flax seeds that we put in our cereal, stuff like that. But flax was a thing that they used to make a torch or candle out of, maybe a wick or something like that. Remember the story of Jericho? Jericho, the destruction of Jericho, where spies came in and they got caught by the king, or somebody found them and Rahab hid them. She put them under flax.
Right.
Oh, she's probably drying the flax for whatever use she's going to make of it. The flax was used to either make a torch or a candle or something of that nature. And in a third world country, you know, if we leave here and leave the lights on, it's no big deal. A few extra bucks on the light bill, and you know, sorry, but it's no big deal. We try to be conservative, but if we live it, it's no big deal. But you know, and if we were living in an impoverished country like some of the backward places in China or Africa or something like that, people are a lot more conservative. But you don't allow a candle to burn all night because you need that candle for the next month. Right. So people are very, very conservative when they're very, very poor. And the idea behind a smoking flax, if it's smoking, that means it's still burning up. Even though it's not flaming, it's still burning up the wick. If it gets down to a little bit enough, you pull it out and you new one. Jesus said a smoking flax, like this, a smoking flax will not pinch it out to make it bright again, make it do its job once again. So that's the idea behind the prophecy. But how do you apply it? You go around light people's candles, or you just go around a little bit and fix all the cattails that are devoured by the dogs that run through over the night. No, that's not what he's talking about. But what is he talking about? I want to look at some illustrations of people that Jesus came in contact with that might be considered bruised reeds. People that the world, the culture around them, would likely throw out or put out of their culture, put them away or get them out of my way so that it's not inconvenient to me. But Jesus sees this situation, and instead of pushing that person aside, he tries to bring that person back to the glory that they have. So, with that thought in mind, turn with me to Mark chapter 5. There's so many illustrations of this, and I just want to spend our first hour looking at a few of them. Mark chapter 5. In Mark chapter 4, we have the story where Jesus was crossing the sea with the disciples, and there was the wind and the rain and the storm, and the disciples crying out there. Well, teacher, do you not care that we're perishing? And he arose from his sleep, and verse 39, chapter 4, verse 39, he rose from his sleep, he rebuked the wind, said to the sea, peace, be still. The wind crossed the sea, and there was a great calm. So here we find them over here in Caesarea, they're crossing the sea, and that's an interesting story in itself, how the people of that culture in that time considered the sea. They considered it the deep and the abyss. Down in that sea, down in the bottom of that sea is where the devil lives. And so when Jesus crossed the sea and that storm came up, he's fighting, in their mind, he's fighting with the powers that be, the spiritual powers that be. That's not exactly what he was doing. But anyway, Jesus crossed the depth, the abyss. He rebuked the winds and the sea, peace be still. And then they end up on the other side. What's on the other side? A lot of times we don't think about that until we get to chapter 5. We disassociate chapter 4 from chapter 5. Chapter 5 is just a continuation. What's what takes place? Then they came to the other side of the sea, and crossed over from Capernaum, I believe, to this place called the country of the Gadarenes. And when he had come out of the boat, immediately there met him out of the country of the Gadarenes. And on this side of the sea, we don't have a picture to look at it, but if you look at the Sea of Galilee, you find Capernaum on one side, and you cross over the sea. On that side, there's going to be a place called the Decapolis. You'll find that this place. Well, it's not here, I think in Luke's account, it's mentioned called Decapolis, or it's Matthew's account. At any rate, this is a place that's mainly filled with Gentile people. Judea, Palestine, what we call Palestine today, is Canaan's land. It's supposed to be filled with Jews, but there are Gentiles in it. Go back in history, you'll find out why. There's a popular here, a popular here, whatever. But there seems to be a high concentration, not only of Gentiles, but pagans. You know what pagans are? Pagans are idol worshippers. So a high concentration of Gentiles who were pagan or idol worshippers in this area of the Gadarenes or the Decapolis. Decapolis is a number of 10 cities that belong to this area. But when he came out of came across the sea, he got out of the boat, and immediately there met him a man out of the tombs with an unclean spirit, whose dwelling was among the tombs, and no one could bind him even with chains, because he had often been bound with shackles and chains, and the chains had been pulled apart by him, and the shackles broke in pieces. Neither could anyone tame him. So you get out of the boat, man. You're heading to Jesus, and across the sea there, the storm came up, and he calms the storm, hit the beach, and immediately upon hitting the beach, here comes, it's a steep incline going off the lake right there. It goes up, so immediately comes this guy. How do you describe this guy? When you see him in your mind as you read that passage, what do you see? A mentally ill person. He's a mentally ill person. He lives in the tombs. Now, you ever anybody live in the tombs? No. You know what's inside the tombs? There's dead people in the tombs. Dead bodies. And you know what dead bodies do? Well, they smell, they rot. And so here's a man living in the tombs because nobody wants him living in their city or in their house. I don't know who he's kids to, but he's got a mama or daddy. They don't want him around. He's got kids or a wife, they don't want him around. So he's homeless, you might say, but he's living in the tombs, and he cuts him. We haven't got that part yet. We're saying always night and day he's in the mountains and in the tombs, and he's doing what? Crying out, cutting himself with stones. He is so filled with this, whatever this demon is, that he's howling at the moon. And just imagine, picture the whole thing. Oh, he's howling at the moon. And for whatever reason, he cuts himself with stones. He breaks, they chain him up to stones or to boulders or whatever, and he breaks the chain. This is a talk of a strong man, and he's coming down the mountain or the hillside at you. What are you going to do? I'm getting in the boat and I'm going back to the other side. And I imagine in my mind's eye, when I see this, that's exactly what Peter and John are doing. We're getting back in the boat. Well, what happened? What did Jesus do? It says that he cried out with a loud voice and said, "What am I?" This is a demon. Verse 6. When he saw Jesus afar off, he ran and worshipped him. Now the word worship means he bowed before him, fell down before him, and he cried out with a loud voice, "What have we to do with you, Jesus, Son of the Most High God?" This is the demons speaking. And every time they see Jesus, every time there's a person possessed with demons in the scriptures, and they see Jesus, it says they cry out, they shriek with a loud voice. I can imagine what it must have sounded like, but maybe you've heard, what's that tale in Ireland about the scream of the banshee. That's what comes to my mind when I hear this word, or see this word in Greek, just what the demons do. They shrieked out, "Well, what have we to do with you, Son of the Most High God? I implore you that you do not torment me." They know why Jesus has come. They don't understand necessarily his purpose. Maybe they think he's come to destroy them, and he has in a sense, but that he's not their target. Who's the target? The world. The people. This man is Jesus' target. Jesus knows what's going to happen to the demons. Jesus knows what's going to happen to the devil. He knows that he's going to overpower them eventually and show his power over them. But it's humans that he's concerned about. He's not concerned about these people. Anyway, he said to them, he had said, and this is the reason he said this, he had said to them, "Come out of the man, unclean spirit." And he asked him, "What is your name?" He spoke to the demon because it's the demon that answered. And he answered and said, "My name is Legion, for we are many." And begged him earnestly that he would not send him out of the country. I don't know why, but that's where he's taking him. Now a large herd of swine were feeding near the mountain, so all the demons begged him, saying, "Send us to the swine that we may enter them." And at once he just gave them permission. Then the unclean spirits went out and entered to the swine. There were about 2,000 of them, and the herd ran violently down into a steep place in the sea and drowned in the sea. So we have here now, what, devil ham? Underwood devil ham if you're an Underwood. But anyway, they drowned in the sea, and so those who saw the swine went and told it in the city and the country. They've gone back home. They were sheep herders, I guess, and they've gone back home, told what they saw, and so the people came out to see Jesus. I don't know how long this is taking. Maybe Jesus and the disciples are sitting there on the hillside studying, or he's teaching or whatever during after this time or after the people had gone. So they came out and they asked to see what was happening. Verse 15, they came to Jesus and they saw the one who had been demon possessed and the legion sitting what? What did Jesus do? He took this wild man, and this person who had been cast out, this bruised reed, this smoking flax, who had been cast, literally cast out of their society and out of their culture, chained to a rock. And Jesus does what with him? He said, you know what, this guy's too wild for me. I'm just going to leave him here with you guys, and I'm going to go back on it. He did just exactly what Isaiah said. He had bruised reed, he will not break. A smoking flax, he will not break. He reached into this person, and ministered to this person, and brought him back to, as it says here, his right mind. And when the people saw it, this crazy guy, this mentally ill guy, this deranged guy that they had chained up and had lived in the tombs, the one that they hoped that their daughters wouldn't meet in a dark alley somewhere. Right. They saw him sitting in his right mind. What was their response? They were afraid. These were pagan people. And when they saw that kind of power over this, the power of this demon, they were content. They could deal with the legion of demons by sticking him in a tomb somewhere. They could deal with the legion of demons by tying him up and just keeping him out of their courts, but they didn't know how to deal with this man who had the power to cast out the demons into the pigs and cause the pigs to go crazy belly sound and stuff. It scared them. I mean, they're afraid. It says, and those who saw it told them what had happened to him who had been demon possessed and about the swine, and they began to plead with Jesus, apart from their they're asking God to lead. Jesus has come over there to show them the glory of the Father. I have power over these demons that have been tormenting you for I don't know how long. You've been hiding your wives and your daughters from this guy and I have shown you power over him, and you're asking me to leave? I'm not leaving. I'm going to build me a church right here. You're going to lie there with me. Jesus says, fine, I'll leave. Got back into the boat, and the guy who had been demon possessed begged him that he might go with him. Jesus said, yeah, come on, I'll make one of my disciples. No? Go ahead. Go home. Tell your friends and your family what God has done for you this way. The people who knew him best would have known exactly what had happened, how he had been healed. They don't refer to demon possession as a healing. It's a different word for it, but for lack of a better word, he's been exercised. Yes, the word. He had been exercised, and they knew how he was in the beginning. They knew how he was when he had become demon possessed, and now they see him back, and they're glad to have him home. And here's the first missionary that Jesus ever sent out. Crazy man from the Gadarenes is the first missionary that Jesus ever sent out. Go back home and take your family. And we know that he was successful because here in this text they're asking Jesus to leave. Don't come back. Or leave our culture, leave our region, because they were afraid. But later on, Jesus comes back to this area and he finds a receptive audience. Here they're asking to leave. Later on, they come back to what caused that receptive audience. This crazy man, Jesus healed, or Jesus exercised. And he went back and told his family what happened. And I think he brought them to the truth. These people, the message of Jesus Hello, Vincent.
Hello.
I think Vincent's joining us. Jesus restored this man to his right mind, and eventually he was able to, that man was Catholic. You have the word there, yeah. He started mentioning Catholics and all that Jesus had done, and when Jesus came back to that area months later, there was a reflective heart. So Jesus takes this bruised reed and he makes him what he's supposed to be. He takes this almost put out candle and he makes it flame again. Now when Jesus had verse 21, Vincent, we're in Mark chapter 5, if you want to open the Bible there. Mark chapter 5. I had a Mark chapter 5, verse 21. We just looked at the first part of chapter 5 where Jesus healed the demon-possessed man. Vincent, you'll have to go back on the video to review that. Verse 21, it says, Now when Jesus had crossed over again by boat to the other side, so he was in Capernaum, went to the other side. On the way, he had the stormy sea, but he said, Peace, be still. He healed the demon-possessed man. Now he's going back to the other side of the sea, Capernaum. And when Jesus crossed back again to the other side, a great multitude gathered to him, and he was by the sea, and behold, one of the rulers of the synagogue. Now, what's your impression of the rulers of the synagogue?
They are important people.
They're important people. They are high-ranking. They are the guys who they run the synagogue. And the synagogue was a civic center. It was a church, so to speak. We wouldn't call it church, but back then, but that's how we would think of it today. It was a school. He was the guy who was officiating. He was the boss. He would be like the mayor of the town. Okay. You got to be somebody up high in that society, in that culture, to be the ruler of the synagogue. And most people who are in that echelon in Capernaum and other places, what did they think about Jesus?
Well, they weren't too pleased with it.
They weren't pleased with it. He came teaching something that they weren't ready for. He came teaching something that was promoting them, at least that's how they felt it, because Jesus said to be great and mighty, you have to be a servant. I'm the ruler of the synagogue. I'm not serving nobody. Right. So these rulers of the synagogue, many of them Pharisees, they didn't care much for Jesus. I'm not saying this guy didn't, but my guess would be that he, before this situation came up, he didn't care anything about Jesus. He was probably talking bad about Jesus. Jesus is that radical guy who's coming in here. We need to be, they were plotting to put him to death. I'm not saying he's one of them, but I'm not saying he's not. Because he is he's in that crowd. Now, he may have stepped out of that crowd and not been a part of it like Nicodemus did. Nicodemus, we'll read in John chapter 3, was a Pharisee, but he kind of took a liking to Jesus, and you find Joseph of Arimathea, same situation. He's the one who put Jesus in his tomb, the body of Jesus in his tomb. So there are two examples of men who were among this ruling class, who did like Jesus or did appreciate the teaching. But this guy here, we don't know. His name's Jairus. Look what happens. He's a ruler of the synagogue, came Jairus by name, and when he saw him, he came and fell at his feet. Now, last week, in the picture in my mind, when he saw him, he cursed him. Right. Last week, when he saw him, he said, I want you out of my synagogue. People at the synagogue in Nazareth tried to stone him or throw him off the cliff, and I don't have any doubt that the people in Capernaum were the rulers.
Because, like, in my Bible, it says, and behold, one of the rulers of a synagogue, which that's an emphasis.
It's an amazing thing that one of the rulers of the synagogue has come and has worshipped him, or has, what is the thing he did? He fell at his feet. Same thing that the demon did, the demon possessed him. He fell at his feet. And he begged him earnestly, saying, My daughter lies at death's door. Come and lay your hands on her that she may be healed. Now, this guy's no fool. he's seen what Jesus has been in Capernaum for a while. It's in Capernaum where Jesus was when the house was so crowded that nobody else could get in. The four men burying the one man went up and dug a hole in the roof and let the guy down. The ruling people of Capernaum were in that household. They were on the front seats. And I imagine Jairus is there with them. And they're the ones who are mumbling. They saw the miracle. They couldn't deny the miracle, but they're trying to find a way that they can deny the miracle because they don't want to. But they saw it. And a lot of times the Pharisees, they will see indications as we hear them speak among each other that, yeah, he did it, and no, we don't want to admit it. We want to kill him, but how are we going to do this? But he can do that kind of stuff. Well, Jairus is no fool. He saw it, and he got personal. Now, if it's his neighbor's daughter, I don't care. But his daughter. And it's significant enough that he came to Jesus and he said, I died in his sleep. I know you can do it. And what Jesus said? Jairus, I heard that curse you pronounced on me last. I ain't going nowhere with you. No. Jesus says, let's go. That's basically it. He said, let's go. He didn't argue with him. He didn't rub Jairus' face in the mud a little bit and say, you know what, you were talking about this last week. And he said, let's go. And so they're on the way. You can just read from the text there. I'm just going to take what it says. Okay. They're on the way to Jairus' house. And there's a mob here. Not a mob, that's probably a strong word. There's a multitude of people following because, Jairus is ruler of the synagogue. Where Jairus goes and where he's being involved in religious activity. Well, and when he's involved with Jesus, Jairus or ruler of the synagogue and Jesus, there's going to be some kind of conflict or something going to go on. I want to see what's happening. So there's a great multitude following Jesus and Jairus to Jairus' house. And then something happened. It says, let us see verse 24. Jesus was with him, and a great multitude followed him. And what's the word? And thronged him. What does it mean, thronged him? They were all, he was expressing the crowd. You ever been to a concert where everybody's jumping and diving and all that stuff? Well, they're not jumping and diving, but they're all pressed in together and they're walking to Jairus' house, wherever that is. And it says there, a certain woman had a flow of blood for 12 years. Well, what does that mean? It means that she was, if I can be graphic, she was on her period for 12 years. She had some kind of chronic disease that she was bleeding, as it says, for 12 years. Now, that's a hard thing for any woman of any culture of any time. I can't even imagine how that might be. All the discomfort, all the inconveniences, and so forth, especially in a third world country where you don't have all the conveniences of the things that women have today. Right? But here's a woman in a third world country that's bleeding for 12 years, but she's in more than just a third world country, and she's in a Jewish third world country. And in Jewish culture, according to Jewish religion, if you're in that time of the month, if you touch blood, or if you're bleeding, you're unclean. You can't go to church. Right. You can't go to the market. You can't pick up the kids without making them unclean. You can go to the market, but when people understand that you are unclean because of your bleeding disease or whatever, they're going to curse you. They're going to say, don't touch my product. If he's selling watermelon, you touch his watermelon's unclean. He can't sell it. So they don't want you. You're an outcast. If you're married, you can't be with your husband. If you got children, you can't touch your children. If you got dirty dishes, you can't wash them. That may not be so bad. But anyway, you see the problem.
One good thing, you can't wash this and you can't cook.
That's right. So just imagine that scenario for this woman. You being a woman, you would have more sympathy for her than myself or Vincent could. But we have an idea of how tragic this situation is health-wise, but it's not only a health issue, it's an issue of society. She has no one to be social with because no one wants to be social with an unclean person and keep them from having. If you're unclean and you touch me, I have to go to the priest. I have to go through the cleansing process. It takes 7 days to to go through the cleansing process, and so I can't touch anybody or do anything for that 7 day period. So you messed up my life for a whole week if you touch me. Well, if she goes to the market, people are going to just get away from me. She's not only not going to have social activity, they're going to be hostile for her because that's the society in which they live. It's not how God intended. I don't really think it was, but it's how it turned out to be among many people. So here's this woman, bleeding 12 years. She's heard about Jesus. Well, it says there in verse 28, she suffered many things from many physicians. She had spent all that she had. She was no better. She grew worse. She's down to her last hope. She's down to her last prayer, and she's about to pray. In fact, she reaches out and wants to touch Jesus. Now, we talked about in the video, one of the videos about Jesus being a rabbi and having the fringes on his garment because he was a rabbi, but the strings that represented various symbolic things. We won't go back into that. That's probably what she touched. We're not probably talking about the edge of his coat, probably the fringes that hung from Jesus' garment. Whatever it was, whether it's his garment or the fringes, she touched the hem of his garment, and immediately, she didn't have to go to the doctor. She didn't have to wait 2 days or wait 3 days. Immediately, she was made whole. And immediately, this is something that's never happened in recorded scripture before, Jesus felt something. He healed without his own knowledge.
Right.
And he felt something, power drained from him somehow. What does it say? How does it word it? It says when she heard that Jesus came behind in the crowd, touched his garment, for she said, if I can only touch his coat, I'll be made well. Immediately found that her blood was dried up, and she felt in her body that she was healed of the affliction. And Jesus immediately knew in himself that power had gone out of him, and he turned around in the what? In the crowd. And what was the crowd doing? The crowd was thronging him, and he said, "Who touched me?" And Peter says, "Lord."
Yeah.
Everybody's touching him. You see the multitude thronging you, and you say, "Who touched me?" And he looked around and to see who it was that done this thing. But the woman, fearing and trembling, knowing what shit had happened to her, came and fell down at his feet and told him all that she did. It was me. I did it. She's probably thinking, this guy who has the power with his clothes to heal me, he's going to zap me and put me in my grave. Jesus does something else that's never any other time recorded in Scripture. Speaks to a woman and calls her daughter. And here's a woman who hasn't had a kind of affection in 12 years. And Jesus says, "My daughter." Can you imagine how that must have heard that word? Jesus is a wise man. He knew what kind of feelings that this woman must have had. Instead of rebuking her, what he says to her is daughter. He didn't have to say anything else. That was healing enough. Even if she hadn't been healed, for him to have a compassionate word for her, I think would have been enough for her to go home. But she was healed, and he does call her daughter. He says, "Your faith has made you whole. Go in peace and be healed of your affliction." So what does Jesus do? He takes this woman who has been cast out of society, who is rejected by society. Don't come around us in society because you're unclean. He takes this wilted flower, this bruised reed, this burnout candle, and makes her flame in glory. The story continues about Jesus going and raising Jairus' daughter from the dead. We look at another illustration. We could go to Luke 15 and talk about the prodigal son. That's a powerful illustration, but in that situation, it's a parable. It's not a real story. It's Jesus telling a parable. So I want to go with this deal with real people. Look at John chapter 8. John chapter 8. To me, it's one of the most amazing passages of Jesus' compassion. We're talking about the life and ministry of Jesus and how he dealt with people. A lot of times we see Jesus preaching in the synagogue. A lot of times we see Jesus telling people that you're in sin or you're a snake or a viper. But Jesus is a person of compassion, a person of peace, a person of love. And that's how he dealt with people. And he found people in their situation. With the widow of Nain, remember what he did with her? He was walking by from one town to another, walked by the city of Nain, there's a funeral going on, and this woman, she's a widow. What does that mean? Her husband is dead. She has no husband, no one to take care of her. And she has a child who can take care of her son. He's dead. He's in the box. That's whose funeral he's watching. And Jesus sees that situation. Amen. You've lost your husband, now you've lost your son. In that society, no one's going to take care of her. She's going to become homeless. If her husband hasn't somehow provided sustenance for her to third world country, it's probably not happening very often, especially in Galilee where people were typically poor. This woman's going to be in dire straits. Jesus, having compassion on that situation, goes out, puts his hand in the box, raises the boy from the dead, and heals the woman of her affliction that she had. That's the kind of person he was. Well, here we find another situation where Jesus deals with not the masses, not the crowd, but the individual. It says in verse 1 that Jesus went to the Mount of Olives. We're in Jerusalem. Okay, the Mount of Olives is outside of the city of Jerusalem. Now, early in the morning, he came again to the temple, and all the people came to him, and he sat down and taught them. This is in the context of one of the yearly festivals. I think it's the feast of what they call Feast of Tabernacles, or Feast of Bruised Reeds, which is a feast that God in the Old Testament told them to celebrate once a year to remember their dependence that they had on God during the wilderness life. So every year on this date, usually around the end of October, people would come to Jerusalem. They live in tents or booths as a symbol to remember that God took care of them while they were in the wilderness. So that's why Jesus is in town, and all the people are in town. But anyway, early in the morning, he came again to the temple, and the people came to him, and he sat down and talked. So this Jesus' custom while he's in Jerusalem, comes to the temple to teach. People come there. Here, it's early in the morning. I don't know what early in the morning means, but it's early in the morning. Early in the morning, sometimes for some people, it's like 7 o'clock. Right. A good friend of mine, she stays up all night and sleeps every day. And so early in the morning, it's like, don't come before 11 o'clock. Anyway, what was that? Let's put it. The scribes and the Pharisees brought to him a woman. What kind of woman? Paul in adultery. Now, how do you catch someone in adultery? Well, the idea is, the concept that's being painted in the next few verses is they found her in the very act with another man, with a man not her husband. Now, how do they do that? How do they know she's with that man? And where is the man, by the way? He's not in the street. They didn't drag him through the city streets. They drugged this woman. Now, the Pharisees, being the nice guys that they were, they probably gave her plenty of time to get dressed and, walk down. No. They drugged her out of the bed. I bet if I were a betting man, I would think they drug her out of the house naked. They caught her in the very act. She may have grabbed a robe or a blanket on the way out, but think of the shame this woman is going to experience over the next few moments. They're dragging her through the middle, not just of any town. If any town would be bad enough, but this is Jerusalem. This is the holy city of God. This is where God's people are, and they're dragging this, what they see as a prostitute, a woman in adultery, naked or pretty much close to it, through the middle of town. What are the ladies next door saying? What are the kids doing when they drag her by? I mean, her name is shame for the rest of her life. I mean, look what's happening to this woman. What's happening to her life? She makes the mistake. Maybe people do things, but some people live off because they just want to be in. They don't care, especially with somebody else's husband. They don't care that they're cheating on their own husband. They just want to do what they want to do. Some people, some women, sell themselves for sex so that they can have something to take home to the kids. It's the only way they can put food on the table. I'm not saying what she's doing. I don't know. Caught in the act of adultery is what she's caught. What was her motivation? Well, the more I see of her story, the more I want to say that this one was trying to put bread on the table. And it is the only means that she thinks she has. She has other means, but this is what society has told her, this is how you get money. So anyway, they brought her, they threw her before, they're at the temple now, they're standing up. They bring her to the temple where the church folks are. They sat her in the midst. They said to him, Teacher, this woman was caught in adultery in the very act. Moses in the law says that you should stone this woman. What do you say? They were testing. They might have something with which to accuse him. But Jesus stooped down and wrote on the ground with his finger as though he did not hear. Now what are they doing? They continued acting. I can imagine. You see the press conferences that a president or some famous person, and he don't want to answer the question, and he's trying to avoid the question. What do the people on the question? They just yell. They shove those questions down. You're going to answer my question. That's what they're doing here. They continued badgering him, and he raised himself up and said, He who is without sin among you, let him throw the first stone. And as bad as the Pharisees are, and as bad as whoever these folks are, as bad as they typically are, I give them one thing. Every one of them walked away, from the youngest to the oldest. Every one of them knew they were not without sin. They had the gumption to admit it. Now, if they were like our media today, badgering, they would tell me as soon as you want to, I'm throwing stones. These guys would not throw the stone because they knew they were right. They gave him credit for what he did. It was the wisest answer that he could have given. They were testing him, trying to trap him. He caught two traps. All right? That's what the law says. You're right. So he who was without sin cast the first stone. That's what the law says too. Nobody wants to throw that stone. And again, he stooped down and rolled on the ground. He did a wise thing there again. He could have just scared them down. He just let them do what they're going to do. He stooped down, rolled on the ground, and they all walked away one by one. And then Jesus was left alone, and the woman standing in the midst. When Jesus raised himself up and saw no one but the woman, he said to her, Woman, where are those accusers? Has no one condemned you? No one, Lord. He said, Me too, I don't say. Now, if you knew of an adulterous woman who was brought in the middle of a church and situation, no one would do that today. No, I hope not. As you see this picture, let's just put yourself in that woman's shoes for a moment. She's been drugged through town by the Pharisees, by the religious rulers, by the squeaky clean guys who think they're so squeaky clean and high and mighty, and they throw her at the feet of the preacher. What does she think she's going to get from that preacher? She's going to get a finger. He's going to shake that finger in her face. You're going straight to hell for what you did. That's what she's expecting. What she gets is, they didn't condemn you, neither do I. Go and sin no more. Jesus takes this truly broken flower, bruised reeds, smoking flax, and he makes her beautiful. He makes her that glorious rose out there. That's how Jesus deals with people with compassion and love and kindness. As we think about the life and ministry of Jesus, we have to see how he dealt with people. Now, he deals with different people different ways. In Matthew 24, he talks to the Pharisees. He's pretty strong. He calls them snakes, vipers, hypocrites, and all kinds of names that he does them because they have shown their heart. These people that he's speaking of here, that man in Mark chapter 5, and that Jairus, and that woman with the blood disease, and the widow of Nain, and this woman, they were as low as they could be, spiritually speaking, physically speaking, emotionally. They were broken people. Instead of casting them off, and Jesus said, No, I've got too much to do. I've got to preach in Jerusalem. I got to be in Nazareth at this time. He doesn't blow them off. He stops his life. He says, Let me help you. That's the Jesus that we don't often see. We see it, but we don't recognize. We don't stop and look at the scripture to see actually what's taking place in that situation. These are just a few of the illustrations that I can show you where Jesus stopped his life and healed a bruised reed, or lighted a smoking flax, brought it back, rejuvenated the flame. Jesus is a kind and compassionate God.
Now let me ask you, you said that the prodigal son was a parable, a story. So is that saying that it's not true, or?
It's not true. It's like Jesus, a parable is a story from which you draw a moral point. And the characters in the parable of the prodigal son are not real characters. You say, imagine this. He draws out this story and he makes a point from that story. The points are true. And you could say, make comparison of the prodigal son that you could probably go to anybody's family and find this situation that he described. And he probably had in his mind a situation. In fact, he does that. We'll look at the video. We'll see where Jesus takes real situations, and rather than embarrassing that family, saying, I saw this guy and his family, and this is blah, 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 he takes it and turns it into a story, no names, and people recognize it. The prodigal son story is in a lot of households, especially, well, even today. Prodigal son story, I was a prodigal son. I know I was. I put myself in that situation. So my dad had to deal with the pain that father in that story had to deal with. But hopefully my dad had to deal with joy too when I came to my senses. I was just thinking so. So yes, it's a story, not real. That's what a parable is. In that same chapter, Luke chapter 15, he told three parables. There's the parable of the lost coin, which could have been a true story because it happened all the time. There's the parable of the lost sheep. It could have been a true story. It happens all the time. But Jesus didn't say this is an event that I'm describing to you that happens over here in this town. He's just making a general story.
Should I say application is true?
The application is absolutely true. I mean, we have to apply the story of Jesus' behavior. There are teachings that Jesus gives where he doesn't do so in parable. He spoke a lot in parables. The parable of the sower, where there were 4 seeds, one seed for ground, good ground, stony ground, and hard ground. Well, that's a story from real life or an actual event that Jesus takes and makes it a teaching. But he spoke to them in a parable. He takes this situation which is real or could be real and makes a story and a spiritual application from it. And I think that's one of the first parables that he told, and one of the few parables that Jesus actually explains. Jesus kind of went on the theory saying that you don't understand it and you're not ready for it. So he told parables, made the application of the parable, but if they didn't get it, then he kind of said their heart's not ready for it.
Now the reason why I asked is because I had an elder at another church that I used to worship at, and they were just fellowshipping my brother, and I brought up the parable of the prophet son. And all the elders said out of anger, well, that story is not true. It's not real.
Well, that's a
but
horrible way to answer your question.
Right.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of people, including myself, saying, you're telling me that what the Bible says is not true.
No, that's not what they should say. That's not true. The word parable is Greek. What is it? Carol. You say, wording of Greek means to lay. So the idea is you have this here, and trying to understand that, you lay aside this here and explain what that is to give shed light on this. That's the idea. You lay aside a teaching that you, one teaching that you lay aside another thing or an event in order to explain the other thing. Something parallel. That's how we hear our word parallel. Two things going in the same direction side by side. That's what it is. Two things going parallel side by side. This one is supposed to be trying to help you understand this one, or vice versa. That's the idea behind the parable. So to say that the parable is not true, that's correct. But to say that you can't make the application, that's incorrect. Because that's exactly what you're supposed to do. If you're not making the application, then you've missed the whole point of Jesus teaching in parables. You've missed the point of that parable. So we have to take the application from that and do what we're supposed to do. So for them to answer your question, I don't know all the scenario that you're speaking of on either side, your side, his side, or their side. But to answer your question by saying, well, that's a parable that's not true, that's absolutely defies the meaning of the purpose of the parable. So they, just from what you told me, I would say they were absolutely wrong in giving you that answer. I don't know the whole story, can't tell you anything more than that, but a parable, just because it's not a true story, doesn't not mean that there's not an application to be made for it. Jesus is not telling stories, bedtime stories.
Right,
This is not entertainment, this is teaching. Right. Jesus chose this manner of teaching. And it's not just he's telling stories to entertain them before they go to bed at night. That's not at all. Teaching to come from heaven. The teaching must be received. Right. And applied. Okay. Vincent, you still there? Thank you, he's not.
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, there you are. What we're going to do, we're going to take a break here, and we're going to come back, and we have 3 videos to look at that we haven't looked at, and I'm going to consume the rest of our time looking at least 2 of those videos, because I think they're important to the message of the class. You have that video at home, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I'm just, rather than to take up your time here on the computer, I'll let you look at the video. If you've already looked at it, that's fine. I'm just going to let these videos go without comment.
Okay.
Ann has not had an opportunity to see them, and I think they do a lot of justice to our mission in this class of looking at the life and ministry of Jesus. So what we'll do for the rest of the class is look at the last 3 videos on that disc that you've got, and probably not make much, if any, comment about those. There's a lot of teaching, good teaching in those videos now. I had really intended on spending more time in the videos in this class, but with a couple of weeks taken out for me being in Russia, and then Ann being so long-winded in her questions all the time. No, I'm blaming her. It's my fault. But,
yes, sir.
Vincent, it's been a wonderful to have you in class. I want to talk to you a little bit later. I'll do it during the week. When's a good time for me to either chat with you on the phone or through media, through messaging or whatever? I want to talk to you about your paper and your the final exam coming up. When's a good time to do that?
I get off at usually at 5:30. I've been doing a lot of overtime, so anytime after 5:30 will be fine.
Anytime after 5:30?
Yes, sir. You have my phone number, correct?
I do not know if I do. If you don't mind sending me an email with that phone number on it.
Okay.
But if you'll send it again, it'll keep me having to look it up, because I'm lazy like that.
Okay, no problem.
So I'll call you sometime, this is what, Thursday? I'll try to call you sometime this weekend, and we'll try to get together and work that out, okay?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and finish the recording here tonight. I'll send you the recording for this first hour, but I won't bother with recording the last part because you have the video there, and so I'll just stop the recording here. All right?
Okay, thank you so much, Mike. I enjoyed the class.
I enjoyed you in the class. I appreciate your comments and your encouragement, your encouraging words and the emails that you've sent.
Yes, sir.
I hope to have you in class again.
Okay, thank you.
Ann says goodbye.
And I say goodbye and hello.
He says hello and goodbye. All right, y'all have a good night.
All right, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye.